You're tired. You run faster every day, yet the goal line keeps moving. You grind, you optimize, you stay busy, and somehow the laziest person in the room is the one getting listened to. You answer faster, you help more, you explain yourself better, and the world rewards you with more demands. You feel your value leaking out through your calendar. You feel your dignity evaporating. Through your notifications, you were infected with hustle conditioning to keep you exhausted. You were trained to believe motion equals worth. You were trained to believe rest is weakness. You were trained to believe if you stop, you'll disappear. And the people who benefit from that training, they never stop. Stop running. Power sits. Master the art of doing nothing. Here's the part nobody tells you. Your busy schedule is often not ambition. It is obedience wearing ambition's mask. It is fear wearing discipline's mask. It is a trauma response dressed up as productivity, so you never have to sit alone long enough to hear what you actually want. And the system loves that. Your workplace loves that. Your family loves that. Your friends who use you love that. Your enemies love that. Because the easiest person to control is the person who can't stop moving. The easiest person to manipulate is the person who confuses urgency with importance. The easiest person to exploit is the person who thinks being needed is the same thing as being respected. Look at the lion. It sleeps and still rules. This video is not about being lazy. It's about strategic inaction. It's about passive strategy. It's about Machiavelli-level power dynamics, where your calm becomes a weapon and your stillness becomes a status signal so loud it makes other people panic. It's about the 48 laws of power without the cringe, specifically the law the desperate can't use: absence, silence, and non-reactivity. It's about emotional control so precise that your enemies start burning their own energy, trying to move you. And yes, we're answering the forbidden question you've avoided for years. Is your busy schedule actually just a trauma response to avoid yourself? By the end, you won't just understand strategic inaction. You will weaponize it. You will know the vacuum phase most people fail. You will understand why availability kills value. You will learn the watchtower concept that changes status forever. You will see how this destroys narcissists without you lifting a finger, because they can't feed on a person they can't reach. And you'll leave with a lazy win protocol you can deploy immediately at work, in relationships, and in every negotiation. If these ideas resonate with you, hit that subscribe button for more top-tier content. Also drop a lazy win in the comments so I know you're ready. Let's dive in. You think doing nothing is weakness because you were trained to associate stillness with danger. You think if you don't respond, you'll be rejected. You think if you don't prove yourself, you'll be forgotten. You think if you don't keep producing, you'll be replaced. And yes, sometimes you were replaced. That's why your nervous system learned a brutal equation: movement equals survival. But power dynamics do not reward survival mode. Power dynamics reward control. Strategic inaction is not doing nothing. Strategic inaction is choosing what deserves your energy and letting everything else die on the floor. Strategic inaction is refusing to give free emotional labor to people who don't pay in respect. Strategic inaction is letting silence do the violence your mouth used to do. Busy is often fear in disguise. Here's the vacuum phase. The moment you stop overgiving, a vacuum appears. And that vacuum is where your old identity starts screaming. You will feel guilt. You will feel restlessness. You will feel the itch to just handle it. You will feel the phantom pressure of imaginary deadlines. You will feel like you're being irresponsible when you're actually being sovereign. Most people fail the vacuum phase in section 2 because they mistake withdrawal for collapse. You were taught that responsiveness is virtue, but Machiavelli knew that responsiveness is often surrender. When you reply instantly, you are training people to treat you like a service. When you are always available, you are pricing yourself like an item on a shelf. When you keep explaining, you are begging for a verdict. Silence creates authority. You need to understand something humiliating and liberating. You have been sprinting to earn a status that stillness gives for free. The still predator does not chase value. The still predator creates gravity. So test this right now in your mind. Think of someone in your life who always seems above it. Think of the person who doesn't rush, the person who responds when they want, the person who never looks desperate, the person who never over-explains. Notice how your body reads them as higher status. That's not charisma. That's passive strategy. And this is where your enemies reveal themselves. The moment you withdraw your automatic yes, the parasites start calling you selfish. The moment you stop being accessible, the entitled start calling you cold. The moment you stop carrying the emotional load, the manipulators start accusing you of changing. Good, you are changing. You are not resting. You are loading. But you still won't do it until you understand why you've been unable to stop, not philosophically, psychologically. The next section is where your calendar confesses what your mouth won't. Is your busy schedule actually just a trauma response to avoid yourself? Yes, often it is. Not because you're weak, because you adapted. You didn't become productive out of pure ambition. You became productive because productivity gave you temporary relief. You became productive because being busy made you feel safe. You became productive because movement distracted you from grief, from rage, from emptiness, from the memory of being ignored, from the fear that if you're not useful, you're nothing. You learned, if you're exhausted, you don't have to feel. You learned, if you're needed, you don't have to ask to be loved. You learned, if you're running, nobody can accuse you of being lazy, even if they're the ones feeding on your effort. And the cruelest part? The hustle identity looks like strength from the outside. From the inside, it's a cage that never stops buzzing. The one who rushes loses. This is why you get overlooked. This is why you get betrayed. Not because you lack talent, because your energy is visible, your urgency is visible, your need to prove is visible. And in power dynamics, visible need is negotiable. Visible urgency is exploitable. Your enemies don't need to overpower you. They just need to keep you moving. They give you just one more thing. They bait you with vague approval. They dangle recognition. They let you feel almost chosen. And you keep grinding because you think the next push is the one that makes you safe. But safety never arrives. The goal line moves, always. Look at the lion. It sleeps and still rules. A high-value man is not high value because he does more. He's high value because he does less, more deliberately. He is selective, he is scarce. He is calm. He is hard to rush, he is hard to guilt. He is hard to recruit into other people's emergencies. And this is where emotional control begins, not controlling your anger after it appears, but controlling the triggers that manufacture it. Overcommitment, overexposure, overavailability. Don't confuse apathy with calculation. Calculation is not numbness. Calculation is choice. So here's your first weapon. Name your busyness correctly. If you use work to avoid yourself, you don't have a schedule problem. You have a self-contact problem. And the moment you sit still long enough to feel your own thoughts, your entire life reorganizes. That's why they trained you to fear stillness, because the detached are ungovernable. And now you're ready for the tactic that will make weak people hate you and strong people respect you, removing your availability. Section 4 explains why availability kills value and why your niceness has been a pricing strategy that made you cheap. Every time you are easy to reach, you pay an availability tax. You pay it in respect, you pay it in leverage, you pay it in mystery, you pay it in status, you pay it in time, you pay it in dignity, and you keep paying because you were taught that being accessible is being good. You were taught that X, but Machiavelli knew that Y. You were taught that kindness means openness, but Machiavelli understood that openness without boundaries is an invitation to be managed. You were taught that immediate responses are professional, but the 48 laws of power teaches a darker truth. The person who can delay can dominate. Robert Greene calls it Law 16. Use absence to increase respect and honor. The desperate can't do it. The anxious can't do it. The exploited can't do it. Because they were trained to equate absence with abandonment. But absence is not abandonment. Absence is positioning. Silence creates authority. You need a mental reframe so sharp it feels violent. You are not an employee of everyone's expectations. You are not a public utility. You are not a vending machine for solutions. You are not a free therapist. You are not a crisis department. You are a strategic asset. And strategic assets are not constantly deployed. They are preserved. They are protected. They are revealed selectively. Essential tools are replaceable. Rare figures are not. If you're always on, you become a tool. If you're not always on, you become a figure. This is why the exhausted grinder is invisible. You are always available, which means people never have to imagine life without you. They never have to value you. They never have to earn you. So you shift from being available to being consulted. You stop answering instantly. You stop volunteering explanations. You stop justifying your boundaries. You stop rescuing people from consequences. You stop doing emotional labor for people who wouldn't lift a finger for you. That is strategic inaction. And this is where people panic, because your old behavior was predictable. Your old behavior was useful. Your old behavior was a lever they could pull. When you remove the lever, they start yanking harder. They text again, they call again, they escalate, they guilt, they flatter, they accuse, they misunderstand. Good, let them. The one who rushes loses. Because every escalation is proof. They were not attached to you, they were attached to access. This is not cruelty, this is manipulation defense. Let's make it clean and ethical. You are not sabotaging anyone, you are not harassing anyone, you are not harming anyone. You are simply withdrawing participation from dynamics that drain you. You are practicing emotional control at the level that actually matters, choosing what you engage. Now the real upgrade. You don't just withdraw, you reposition, you move from the floor to the tower. The watchtower concept changes status forever, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. In every social system, there are runners and there are watchers. Runners are busy, watchers are dangerous. Runners react, watchers observe. Runners get recruited into urgency. Watchers decide what is real. Runners are measurable. Watchers are unreadable. You were trained to be a runner. School trained you to be a runner. Jobs trained you to be a runner. Your family trained you to be a runner. Be helpful. Be quick. Be reliable. Be nice. Be humble. Be grateful. Translation: be easy to direct. But Machiavelli did not build princes out of runners. He built princes out of strategists. Strategic thinking requires space, and space requires doing less. So here is the watchtower. You step back far enough to see the whole board. You stop arguing point by point and start watching motives. You stop responding to tone and start tracking patterns. You stop explaining your intentions and start measuring outcomes. You stop asking, how do I make them understand? And start asking, what are they gaining by not understanding? This is dark psychology, but not for cruelty. Dark psychology for clarity. Busy is often fear in disguise, and the fear is this: if you stop performing, people might see you, not the mask, not the role, you. The watchtower forces a confession. You have been trying to earn safety from the very people who profit from your instability. So you do something that looks like laziness to the anxious and looks like power to the intelligent. You pause. You read, you listen, you let them talk, you let silence stretch, you let them fill it, you let them reveal themselves. Silence creates authority. This is emotional control as a status weapon. Most people can't handle silence because silence removes their script. Silence makes them improvise. Silence makes them expose their need, their hostility, their insecurity, their manipulation. And the moment you stop feeding the script, something fascinating happens in power dynamics. People begin to project, they begin to guess, they begin to worry. They begin to negotiate with an image of you that is more powerful than your old self ever was. You become opaque, you become heavy, you become a problem they can't solve with pressure. The sniper mindset appears next, and it's the difference between calm and lethal. This destroys narcissists in Section 6, not by attacking them, by starving them. A narcissist, an attention addict, a chronic manipulator, whatever label you use, runs on one fuel, your reaction. They don't need you to love them. They need you to respond. They don't need you to agree. They need you to engage. They don't need you to be happy. They need you to be affected. Your attention is their oxygen, so when you fight them, you feed them. When you explain, you feed them. When you defend, you feed them. When you try to win, you feed them. Strategic inaction is how you remove the oxygen. You don't do it with drama. You do it with absence. You don't do it with rage. You do it with emotional control. You don't do it with exposure. You do it with a passive strategy that makes them talk to themselves. Look at the lion. It sleeps and still rules. Here's the move. You become boring. Not weak boring. Not defeated boring. Predator boring. You give short answers. You give no extra details. You give no emotional spikes. You give no visible injury. You give no apology for boundaries. You give no performance. You become a wall. And a wall does something magical in power dynamics. It forces the other person to spend energy. They push. You don't move. They push harder. You don't move. Their mask slips, their tone changes, their tactics rotate, and you learn everything. Don't confuse apathy with calculation. Apathy is I don't care. Calculation is I care where this goes, so I will not be pulled. This is not about being a robot. This is about choosing your battles like a sovereign. Machiavelli understood a painful truth. Many conflicts are not won by superior force, but by superior patience. People self-destruct when they can't control your emotions. People expose themselves when they can't harvest your validation. So you stop giving them a surface to grip. You stop making eye contact during bait. You stop replying during spikes. You stop meeting intensity with intensity. You stop trying to correct their narrative. You let time do the work. The one who rushes loses. Because when you rush to defend yourself, you are accepting their frame, that you are on trial, but you are not on trial. You are observing. And eventually, they do the only thing they can do when their manipulation fails. They escalate into ugliness or they collapse into neediness. Either way, they reveal their true objective. And that's how you destroy them without lifting a finger. You remove their supply and their performance crumbles. Now we turn this into a full system. Workplace, relationships, negotiations, social status, so your stillness becomes a reputation, not a moment. Final stage feels illegal because it looks like you're winning without suffering. This is the part you implement, not someday, not after you feel ready. You will never feel ready. The exhausted grinder will always invent one more task to delay your freedom. So here is the protocol: simple, cold, ethical, effective. 1. You install a delay. You stop treating messages like alarms. You stop rewarding urgency with immediacy. You respond on your schedule unless something is truly critical. This one change upgrades you into a different class of person. It signals you have a life, a mission and boundaries. It signals you have emotional control. It signals you are not recruitable. And yes, people will test it. Let them. Silence creates authority. 1. You reduce your output to increase your value. This is where you stop over-delivering to people who under-respect you. You deliver what you agreed to, precisely. You do not add extras to buy affection. You do not decorate your work to beg for praise. You do not exhaust yourself to preempt criticism. A high-value man is not the one who empties himself. A high-value man is the one who remains full. Essential tools are replaceable. Rare figures are not. 1. You become scarce on purpose. You schedule non-availability like it is sacred. You protect blocks of quiet time. You go offline. You disappear long enough for people to feel the gap. This is not playing games. This is the 48 laws of power as reality. Absence changes how people perceive you. When you're constantly present, you're taken for granted. When you're selectively present, you're respected. Use absence to increase respect and honor. That is Law 16. That is Robert Greene's wording, but it's older than the book. It's Wu Wei. Effortless action, strategic non-action, letting the river carry what your hands cannot force. Anti-hustle is not anti-ambition. Anti-hustle is anti-exploitation. 1. You stop announcing your plans. You stop telling people what you're going to do. You stop asking for permission. You stop seeking consensus from people who aren't building with you. You move in silence. You let results speak. You let time certify you. The one who rushes loses. 1. You practice cold courtesy. This is your social dominance without aggression. You are polite, brief, and unreactive. You do not argue. You do not chase. You do not plead. You end conversations first. You leave before you feel drained. This is passive strategy in motion. You control the temperature of the interaction. 1. You choose one arena to dominate, and you ignore the rest. The exhausted grinder tries to win everywhere and loses everything. The still predator wins in one place so hard that it pays for every other place. Machiavelli would call this concentration of force. Modern people call it focus. Power dynamics call it leverage. Now, a warning you need to hear. Your environment will try to drag you back into the old role. They will call you lazy. They will call you different. They will call you cold. They will call you selfish. But listen carefully. That backlash is proof your previous self was profitable. Busy is often fear in disguise, and guilt is often a leash in disguise. So when guilt appears, you don't negotiate with it. You label it. You say, this is conditioning. You say, this is the old me trying to earn safety through exhaustion. You say, this is withdrawal pain from being needed. You are not becoming evil. You are becoming unavailable to exploitation. That is manipulation defense. That is emotional control. That is strategic inaction. That is how a high-value man moves through the world without begging it to be fair. Now we close the loop. Why this works at the deepest level. Because your enemies are not defeated by your effort, they are defeated by your refusal. Because your opponents are not scared of your speed, they are scared of your stillness, because stillness tells the truth. You are not desperate, you are not resting, you are loading. And once you become the kind of person who can sit in silence without reaching for stimulation, without reaching for validation, without reaching for tasks, without reaching for noise, your life stops being a reaction. It becomes a design. You stop moving, and the world starts revealing who it really is. You stop chasing, and people start negotiating. You stop overgiving, and your energy stops bleeding out. You stop lifting a finger, and somehow the right things start lifting themselves toward you. That's not magic. That's power dynamics. That's Machiavelli meeting Wu Wei. That's the 48 laws of power applied with emotional control. That's passive strategy executed by someone who finally respects themselves. And now you're ready for the final initiation, the test. Stop moving. Let the world break against your stillness. You started as the exhausted grinder, anxious, sweaty, overlooked, trying to prove a worth that should never have been up for debate. You were betrayed not because you were stupid, but because you were predictable. You were exploited not because you were weak, but because you were accessible. You were overlooked, not because you lacked ability, but because your urgency made you look manageable. Now you become the still predator, calm, rested, terrifying. Because you refuse to be rushed, you refuse to be recruited, you refuse to be farmed for effort. So here's your final challenge. Do nothing for 24 hours unless critical. No productive cleaning, no just catching up, no quick errands, no I'll relax after I finish this one thing. You will sit, you will walk, you will eat, you will breathe. You will let your nervous system learn that stillness is not death. And when the itch to prove yourself hits, when you feel the anxiety that used to drive your hustle, you will recognize it as the old program trying to reclaim you. If you're ready to become unrushable, unguiltable, and impossible to manipulate, comment, "I am ready," and subscribe. Join the quiet elite. Join the people who don't win by suffering. Join the people who don't fight for scraps. Join the people who let time, silence, and discipline do the damage. Now turn cold. Watch this. The on-screen video matters more than you think because it shows you the next layer. How to stay untouchable when they realize they can't control you anymore. See what others miss. Know what others fear. Become who others can't.